The blood on her hoodie wasn't hersened. Neither was the man's wallet clenched in her trembling hand. So when the first cop yelled, "Hands where I can see them," she didn't know whether to cry, run, or explain she'd just saved his damn life. Tayana Lane was 15 years old and had already memorized the sound of gunshots and hungry stomachs. She lived in Southside Chicago, in a group home called Hope's Gate that hadn't seen Hope in years. Every Thursday, she walked 2 miles after school to the public library just to avoid being in the house when the older girls fought over cold chicken or broken hearts. That's where she was when the accident happened. It was snowing that March afternoon, the kind of snow that made everything look softer than it was. Tayana had wrapped her scarf 3 times around her neck and stepped off the curb when the brake screamed. She saw the man fly before she heard the crunch. His body rolled like a rag doll across the pavement, landing half in the street, half on the icy sidewalk. People gasped, phones came out, but nobody moved, except her. She dropped her backpack, ran, slid on her knees next to him. "Sir? Sir, can you hear me?" His face was pale under the blood. His leg was bent wrong, arm twisted like a question mark, but his eyes fluttered open. Blue, confused, and full of pain. "To think I'm dying," he said. "You're not," she snapped, louder than she meant. "You're not dying, okay? You just gotta stay with me." Tayana didn't know CPR. She wasn't trained. All she knew was she wasn't about to let this man die alone in the street like the stray dogs in her neighborhood. She took off her scarf, pressed it to the side of his head to slow the bleeding, and yelled at someone frozen on the sidewalk, "Call an ambulance. What the hell are y'all waiting for?" She didn't realize she was covered in his blood until the sirens arrived. When the police showed up first, of course, the tension shifted. The white driver who hit him was already in the back of a cruiser, crying. A young officer, rookie, maybe took one look at Tayana, crouched over the bleeding man, and shouted, "Put your hands up!" "Are you serious right now?" she said, standing slowly. "I just helped." "Drop the wallet." "What?" She looked down. In her hand was the man's wallet-thick leather, probably slipped out of his jacket when she checked his ID for the paramedics. She grabbed it instinctively, not even realizing. "I was trying to help," she tried again. 2 other officers came up behind her. The crowd had started murmuring, half filming, half retreating. Then the old man groaned, raised his hand weakly, and muttered, "Help me." But Tayana was already being pulled back, handcuffed on the spot. 3 hours in holding. That's how long it took before someone realized the man she'd saved had given a full statement from his hospital bed. Said she probably saved his life, that she was a hero. They let her go without an apology. When she got back to the group home that night, her hoodie still stiff with blood, the supervisor didn't say anything, just tossed her a trash bag and told her to wash up. Nobody at Hope's Gate cared that she'd been on the news. Nobody at her school mentioned it the next day, and Tayana didn't expect they would. She went back to the library the next Thursday. Same corner, same snow, except this time there was a man waiting outside. Same face, fewer bruises, a thick wool coat, dark sunglasses, and a black driver's car behind him. "You came," he said. Tayana looked at him sideways. "This is my route. I wanted to thank you again. Properly. You already did." He chuckled softly. "No, that wasn't properly." She shifted. "Look, I'm not trying to be rude, but I didn't do it for whatever this is. I did it because it was the right thing to do. That's exactly why it matters." He reached into his coat pocket. She took a step back. He smiled and instead pulled out a folded envelope. "This is for you. No strings." She hesitated. "What is it?" "A scholarship." "Well, a promise of one. High school, college, beyond. All expenses. I set up a foundation. In your name." She laughed. Bitterly. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." He paused. "I was a poor kid once. Before the money. Before the name. My parents were janitors. We didn't have heat some winters. The day you helped me, I saw someone I used to be, and someone I hope to become. Tayana stared at the envelope. Then she said, "What's your name?" "Edward Rains," he replied. She blinked. "Wait, Rains? As in Rains Tower?" "Rains Corp." He smiled again. "So I guess you do know me." She took the envelope. Slowly. And that's how it began. What she didn't know, then what nobody knew, was that Edward Rains didn't just give her money. He gave her something no one had ever offered before. A chance to rewrite the ending. But happy endings don't come without a fight. And what came next would test not just her resilience, but everything this country believes about race, wealth, and who deserves to be saved. Tayana didn't tell anyone at Hope's Gate about the envelope. She hid it under a loose floorboard beneath her bed, the same place she kept her library card and the letters from her mom before the drugs took her away. It felt too fragile to show off, too unreal to speak aloud. But Edward Rains missed her. Billionaire, tower, guy didn't disappear like she thought he would. Every Thursday after that, he sent a black car to wait discreetly across the street from the library. At first, she ignored it. Then, one day, she opened the back door and climbed in. "I'm not your charity case," she said, her voice sharp. "I never said you were." "Then why me?" "I told you. You remind me of who I was, and what this city forgets." She crossed her arms, stared out the window. "You're just feeling guilty." "Maybe, but I'm not here for redemption. I'm here for revolution." She turned to him slowly. "You're not what I expected. Neither are you." He asked her what she wanted to be when she grew up. She told him she didn't plan on growing up in the first place, at least not in a world that looked at her like a problem to solve or a mistake to erase. He listened, actually listened, like every word out of her mouth was worth gold. Over the next few months, their meetings became a pattern, sometimes in the back of the car, sometimes over sandwiches in a quiet corner of his corporate office, where his assistants glanced at her like she was a shadow in the wrong light. But he didn't care. He asked her about school, about poetry, about how she'd survive if the system never changed. And one day, she asked the question she'd been holding back. "Why hide who you are?" He sighed. "You ever heard of quiet money?" She shrugged. "It's the kind that doesn't get you assassinated in headlines. I fund schools, legal aid, housing always behind dummy core. Nobody knows it's me, not even my board. Keeps the sharks from smelling blood. So why tell me? Because I want you to know what power looks like when it's not in a suit. And because someday I think you're going to change things too. But change isn't welcome everywhere." One Thursday evening, after their usual meeting, the black car dropped Tayana back at the group home like always. She walked in, humming under her breath. But something felt off. Ms. Brenda, the supervisor, was sitting in the common room, her face tight. "There was a call," she said. "Someone from Rains Corporation. Asked for you by name." Tayana froze. "You know someone named Edward Rains?" Yeah. He's a friend." Ms. Brenda scoffed. "People like that don't have friends like us." "What exactly are you doing, Tayana?" "I'm not doing anything wrong." Brenda leaned forward. "You listen to me, girl. Rich white men don't give away money out of kindness. They take what they want, and they leave. That's not what this is." "Oh no. You think you're special? Think you're the one exception? I've seen girls like you fall for this savior fantasy before. It's not like that." "Then why do you hide it?" Tayana had no answer. That night, she lay awake staring at the ceiling, heart thudding with something close to shame but also fire. She knew what people saw when they looked at her, but she also knew what Rain saw. And it wasn't pity. It was potential. The next week, when she arrived at his office, he handed her a thin manila folder. "What's this?" "A map." Inside were documents, legal filings, receipts, blueprints, all tied to something called the Fulton Project. Affordable housing on the edge of downtown. 10 acres of open land. Zoned, permitted, ready to build. And I want you to run it. She laughed out loud. I'm not even old enough to vote. You got instincts, Tay. You see things these developers don't. You know what people really need. Are you serious? As a collapsed economy. She flipped through the pages. Her fingers trembled. This ain't just a building. No, it's a beginning. She didn't sleep for 2 nights after that. Her brain buzzed like a live wire. She started sketching ideas in her math notebook, tiny parks between buildings, libraries on the first floors, food co-ops instead of liquor stores. She even pitched it to her social studies teacher, who gave her extra credit just for thinking beyond the textbook. But the moment word got out, the backlash came fast. A whisper at school. She only got that 'cause she's black. A snide comment from a staff member. Must be nice having a billionaire sugar daddy. The news got hold of it next. Teenage girl from troubled background handed multi-million-dollar community project. Not trusted with handed. As if she hadn't earned a damn thing. Edward told her to ignore them. You're too busy building something real to waste time explaining yourself to people stuck in fake outrage. But Tayana wasn't built to ignore. She was built to fight. She started a podcast, called it Southside Speaks. Every week, she interviewed someone from her neighborhood. A janitor, a single mom, a bus driver, a librarian. She asked them what justice meant, what safety felt like, what they wish people with money actually understood. It exploded overnight because she wasn't speaking for the community. She was letting the community speak. Still, with every step forward, the pushback got worse. An anonymous tip accused her of embezzling from the project. Inspectors showed up unannounced. City council members who'd once clapped for her now called for audits. The worst came when a smear campaign hit the news. Blurry photos of her getting in a Rain's car. Headlines like, "Is this Chicago's newest puppet?" or "Billionaire's teenage protege raises eyebrows." Even Hope's Gate called CPS to investigate. Through it all, Edward stayed calm, steady. This is what they do, he told her. They fear what they can't control. Tayana clenched her fists. Then they should be terrified. But it wasn't just politics anymore. Someone threw a brick through the window of the community center under construction. Spray painted across the drywall. Know your place. She stood in front of it the next morning with a microphone in hand. Cameras rolled. "I do know my place," she said. "It's here. Building something you can't burn down with a can of paint." The video went viral in under an hour. That same day, Raines was called in for questioning on suspicion of campaign finance violations tied to the Fulton project. It was bogus, but the damage was done. The board of Raines Corporation forced him to step down indefinitely. He smiled in the press photo. They didn't realize what he'd already set in motion. 3 days later, he signed over the Fulton project to a new nonprofit, named after Tayana. She didn't find out until the morning it hit the Tribune's front page. Tayana Lane to lead city's first community-directed development project. They tried to erase me, so I wrote myself in ink. But even then, the battle wasn't over. Because the richest people in the city had declared war on a girl they never thought could matter. And she had only just begun to show them how wrong they were. There was a strange kind of silence in the streets after the headlines. Not the peaceful kind, the waiting kind, like the city itself was holding its breath. Tayana stood in front of the empty lot on 53rd and Racine, wind ripping through her hoodie, eyes locked on the fence that had been ripped down overnight. Vandals had come again. This time, they didn't stop at graffiti. They'd set fire to the tool shed, busted open the storage containers, slashed tires on the cruise trucks. Her construction manager, Mr. Lopez, stood next to her with a clipboard in hand, jaw tight. "They hit us hard, T." She didn't respond at first, just stared, then said quietly, "How bad? We can fix it, but we lose 2 weeks. Maybe more." She nodded slowly, swallowed the heat rising in her throat. "They're trying to make us quit," she said. I know. We're not quitting. I know that, too. They rebuilt the fence the next day, reinforced the lights, hired overnight security paid for out of her own savings. Not the foundation's money. Hers. Because this wasn't about optics. It was personal now. And personal got dangerous real fast. One night, after leaving the site late, she took the L train home alone. She'd done it 100 times before. But this time was different. A man in a suit sat across from her. Didn't blink. Didn't move. Just watched. She switched cars. He followed. When she got off at 63rd, he was gone. Or so she thought. 2 blocks from Hope's Gate, a car rolled up slow behind her. Tinted windows. No plates. She ran. Didn't stop until she was inside, heart slamming against her ribs like it was trying to escape. She didn't tell Brenda. Didn't call the police. She knew how that would go. A black girl claiming she was followed? No one would care until she was a headline. Instead, she called the only person who always picked up. Rains answered on the first ring. You okay? She didn't say anything right away. Then, they're watching me. His voice dropped. Who? I don't know. But they want me scared. Silence. Then, I need you to listen very carefully. You can't stay at the group home anymore. What? That's my. It's not safe. You've made too much noise. You've pulled too many strings that rich white men don't like to see moved. You saying I should run? I'm saying I've already got a place set up. Condo. Downtown. Secure. You'll finish the project. But not from the shadows anymore. I'm not hiding. I'm not asking you to. I'm asking you to survive. She didn't answer. But the next day, she packed her things. 1 trash bag, a backpack, and the envelope now tattered and bent from that first night. The condo was nothing like she'd ever lived in. White walls, glass balcony, doorman who smiled too much. But it was hers. And from the top floor, she could see the edge of the construction zone 2 neighborhoods away. Like a promise. Word spread fast. The girl from Hope's Gate had gone corporate, they said. Sold out. Moved up. But Tayana didn't forget where she came from. She took the mic again. On her podcast. On live streams. In public forums. They wanted her quiet. She got louder. And then came the court summons. She was being sued by a coalition of concerned investors who claimed she'd misused city funds, jeopardized public safety, and violated over 20 building ordinances. It was all lies, but it was legal lies, designed to bury her under red tape and silence. Her lawyer, one of Rain's, best explained it gently. They're not trying to win. They're trying to wear you out. Tayana sat in the conference room with her hands folded, nails bitten raw. So what do? We fight. Every single word. Good. Let's make it loud. But the trial didn't stay in the courtroom. It spilled onto the internet, into newspapers, on talk shows. People debated whether she was a fraud or a genius, whether Rains was using her or if she was manipulating him. No one could believe a 15-year-old black girl from the South Side could be both powerful and honest. That's when the photos leaked. Private shots. Her asleep on the couch in Rain's office. Her hugging him. Her in the back seat of the car, leaning toward him with a smile. Out of context. Intentionally twisted. The captions were cruel. She was groomed. A pawn. The next Elizabeth Holmes. She didn't cry. Not in public. But when she went home that night, she locked the door, turned off her phone, and curled into the corner of the bed, shaking. It wasn't just the betrayal. It was the helplessness. Like no matter what she did, the world only saw her skin and assumed the worst. That night, Rain showed up. In person. He didn't knock. He just walked in and sat beside her. She didn't speak for a long time. Then softly, "They're killing me." He looked at her with eyes that had seen too much. "Then we make sure they kill the lie, not you." The next morning, she held a press conference. No lawyers. No handlers. Just her. She stood in front of City Hall, and said the one thing they never expected. "You don't scare me." She stared straight into the cameras. "Yeah, I'm a kid. Yeah, I'm black. Yeah, I came from nothing. But I built something, and you can tear down my name, you can twist my story, but you can't touch what I already gave back." She paused. "I've had strangers try to ruin me. Cops try to arrest me. Media try to define me. And you know what? I'm still here." The video broke records. Millions of views. More importantly, it broke silence. Other girls came forward. Other stories. Other truths. The tide began to turn. By the time her court date came, the city was watching. And this time, they weren't looking away. The courtroom buzzed with static tension. Reporters packed the benches. Live streams counted tens of thousands of viewers. On the surface, it was a civil lawsuit. But everyone in Chicago knew the truth. This was a war for the future of the city, fought through the body of a black teenage girl who'd refused to stay silent. Tayana Lane walked into the courtroom wearing a plain gray suit and black sneakers. She didn't smile. She didn't wave. She just walked. Behind her, Edward Reynes, no longer a billionaire in the boardroom, but a man who had bet his entire legacy on the girl beside him. The prosecution opened first. Their lawyer wore expensive arrogance like a tailor jacket. He pointed at her, called her unqualified, reckless, a media construction. He said she was manipulated, that the Fulton Project was a financial fantasy, that real development belonged to the professionals. Then they showed the photos again, those out-of-context images. "She's 15, the lawyer said coldly. "What kind of man gives a child this kind of authority, this kind of access?" But this time, the courtroom didn't gasp. This time they listened, because they'd heard her speak now, seen her work, walked past the construction sites she'd fought for. And now it was her turn. Her lawyer stood, but Tayana placed a hand on his arm. "I want to speak myself," she said. He hesitated, then nodded. She rose slowly, took the stand, cleared her throat, and said, "I didn't ask to be here. Not in this courtroom. Not in this story. I was just a girl trying to get home from the library when I saw a man dying in the street. I helped him. That's it. No agenda. No camera. Just instinct." She paused, locking eyes with the jury. "They arrested me that day. You remember that part? While I was still covered in his blood. They didn't ask questions. They saw a black girl and assumed theft. That's where this started. With a system so broken, it saw a child saving a life and called a crime." She leaned forward. "And now you want to call it fraud? You think I can't lead a housing project because I didn't come from university? Because I didn't wear heels to the meetings? You think my community doesn't deserve clean buildings unless they're designed by people who've never walked our blocks?" She looked at the prosecution's table. "You don't want the truth. You want silence." Then she turned back to the jury. "But I'm not here for you to like me. I'm here because the South Side deserves more than waiting. Because we got kids sleeping in cars while empty lots rot under broken promises. Because maybe I didn't go to business school, but I know what it means to fight for something that doesn't exist yet. That's leadership." Silence. Then one juror nodded. Then another. Outside the courthouse, the crowd cheered. A movement had started quietly at first, but now it was roaring. 3 days later, the court ruled in her favor. Unanimous. The case dismissed. No fines. No injunctions. She won. But winning didn't feel like the end. It felt like a beginning. 6 months later, the Fulton Project opened its first building. 3 stories, 18 units, solar panels, a grocery co-op on the first floor, a rooftop garden, every brick laid by local hands, every design reviewed by neighborhood boards, a plaque by the entrance read, "Lane House built for us, by us." Tayana stood beside Edward Raines on the opening day, the sun hot on her cheeks. He looked thinner now, older, but his smile was real. "You did it," he said. She shook her head. "We did it. A girl ran up to her then 8, maybe 9, with beads in her hair and a tooth missing. She grabbed Tayana's hand. "My mom says we're going to live here," the girl said proudly. Tayana crouched, smiling. "Then this is your house now." The girl beamed. After the crowd faded and the cameras packed away, Rain sat beside Tayana on a bench outside the building. He exhaled. "You know, they're going to keep coming for you." "I know. You ready for that?" She turned to him, eyes bright but steady. "I was born ready." He chuckled softly. "That's what I'm afraid of." She laughed, too. Then silence. "I never told you," he said after a while, "why I really set up the foundation. Why I picked you. I figured it was guilt and a concussion." He shook his head. "It was legacy." She looked confused. He continued, "My son died 5 years ago. OD'd. In a penthouse I paid for. I spent money trying to bury that shame. Trying to build towers tall enough to block the grief." Tayana looked away. He wasn't fishing for pity. He was digging for truth. "You reminded me of what I lost," he said, "and what I might still save." She blinked, then said quietly, "You didn't save me, Mr. Rains." He smiled. "I know." Years passed. Tayana Lane went on to oversee 5 more housing projects. She graduated high school with honors. Got into Howard. Full ride. Then turned it down. "I've got work to do here," she told the reporters. Instead, she founded a network of youth-run development boards across Chicago. Trained kids in city planning. Taught them to read blueprints, budgets, and battle lines. She didn't just change the skyline. She changed who was allowed to dream it. Edward Rains died quietly one winter morning, 5 years after the accident that brought them together. No press, no scandal, just a note left in his will. "To Tayana Lane, who taught me what real wealth looks like." He left her everything. She donated 90% of it to the Lane Foundation. Kept the old black car. Drove it herself. The last scene was quiet. A little girl 10 years old, hoodie too big for her, stood outside a library on the south side. Snow falling in sheets. She saw a man trip on the curb and collapse. People froze. Phones came out. But she moved, ran, kneeled beside him. "Sir, are you okay?" She didn't know someone was filming her. Didn't know that video would go viral. Or that in an office window 4 blocks away, a woman named Tayana Lane would watch it happen and smile quietly to herself. Because history doesn't repeat. It echoes. And sometimes, if you're lucky, it answers back. Thank you for listening. If you find it interesting, please like and subscribe to follow the next stories.